There is a question that Protestants and Catholics argue about all the time, but very few people are willing to confront it honestly. Why is it that so many Protestant pastors earn six-figure salaries, live in large homes, build media platforms, and sometimes become millionaire religious celebrities?
Do you think you've used the Lord's word to profit?
That's me confronting mega pastor Joel Osteen at the largest church in America with an estimated $90 million annual budget.
This is huge.
It's a massive auditorium. After a digital greeting from Joel,
we're so blessed to have you. Always a joy to come into your homes. We just feel blessed and honored.
Sunday service had begun.
Proverbs 18 says, when you give, it can open doors. We want to thank you for your generosity and your donations.
He's almost like a motivational speaker who has co-opted God and Jesus as his mascots to make money. Luckily for me, there was a meet and greet with Joel right after service.
I need a promise.
All right.
You gotta go quick.
How you doing?
Good, how about you?
I'm doing good. Could you sign my book?
I'd be glad to.
Joel, I have a question for you. Do you think you've used the Lord's word to profit, like grossly? Do you think you distorted the Lord's word to make money? Whoa.
Appreciate you coming.
Whoa.
Thank you.
Promise.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I asked you not to do that in the obedience of God. He is a blessing. You still did that.
While the average Catholic priest lives in a modest parish rectory, drives an ordinary car, and earns less than many school teachers. For decades, Protestants have criticised the Catholic Church as a powerful institution that controls money and influence. Yet when you actually look at how Christian ministry functions today, something surprising happens. The modern Protestant pastor model often begins to look like a religious business structure, while the Catholic priesthood looks far closer to a life of sacrifice. That may sound confrontational, but it is a serious question worth examining, because the structure of ministry shapes the incentives of ministry. And the Bible repeatedly warns believers about what happens when spiritual leadership becomes tied to money. Scripture is not silent about this problem. In fact, the New Testament warns about corrupt teachers over and over again. In 2 Peter 2:3, the Apostle Peter gives a chilling warning about religious leaders who manipulate believers for financial gain. In their greed, these teachers will exploit you with fabricated stories. Peter is not talking about atheists or pagans. He is talking about teachers inside the Christian community. The danger of financial corruption in ministry was real, even in the first century. Paul gives a similar warning in 1 Timothy 6:5, describing those who are depraved in mind and deprived of the truth, imagining that godliness is a means of gain. In other words, the apostles already knew that some leaders would treat religion like a financial opportunity. That warning did not expire after the first century. It still applies today.
How do you and maybe most churches, friends, people in ministry that you talk with, what's like the general consensus of how you guys think about compensating in ministry? Because, for example, somebody personally that's thought about this as far as maybe starting a ministry or church in the future, here's my thing. If a pastor makes $1 million a year from the tithes and offerings, I'm actually not mad at it. If it is done in the right way. What could the right way be? This is one idea. If your church is a ginormous megachurch that's having a huge impact on the world, and largely because of the pastors preaching and them being a face of the congregation, if we want to be honest, and they're the ones that are delivering the message every single week for the most part, and leading these people, and you're generating $100 million in tithes and offerings, and you take, let's say, I don't know the math, but let's say before it was that, when it was a small church with 100 members, 50 members, you said, hey, I'm going to take a $60,000 base salary and I get 2% of tithes and offerings, 5%, 4%, whatever's conservative but fair.
Yeah.
And then that number grows from 50 members to 100 million and 20,000 members. Why would I be mad at that person for making $1 million a year? Because of the impact that they're having, it seems very fair.
So $1 million out of 100 million? Wow. That's incredible.
Right?
That's incredible.
Fair, right? More than fair.
Fair? You think 1 million out of 100 million is fair?
Probably not fair.
Okay.
I don't know. I didn't do the math. I'm not that good at
I'm
math.
asking you.
But I
that's
think
less than 10%.
Yeah, that's not fair.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. And,
yes.
and
so tell me what you think would be fair.
I don't know. I haven't thought too much about it. That's why I asked you the question of how you think about it.
Now, before anyone becomes defensive, we need to be fair. Not every Protestant pastor is wealthy. Many pastors serve faithfully and live modest lives. But the issue here is not individual character. The issue is the system. In most Protestant churches, the pastor is hired by the congregation, paid by the congregation, and evaluated by the congregation. His salary often depends on the size and success of the church. If the church grows, donations grow. If donations grow, salaries often grow. Larger churches frequently lead to book deals, speaking engagements, conference appearances, podcast sponsorships, and media revenue. In extreme cases, pastors have become celebrities with enormous personal wealth. That doesn't mean every pastor is corrupt, but the structure itself creates a powerful incentive. The larger the audience, the greater the income. When ministry becomes tied to popularity, the temptation emerges to protect the audience rather than challenge it.
Some priests and religious orders take vows of poverty, which means they can't own anything personally. Everything is owned by the community. I'm a diocesan priest, which means I don't have a community to help care for me in the same way. So I do receive a monthly monetary stipend from the parish to support myself. We call this a stipend very intentionally because it's not payment for my work. I would never charge to say Mass or hear confessions or pray for someone. That's actually against church law.
Now contrast that with the structure of the Catholic priesthood. A Catholic priest does not start a church. He does not build a personal following. He does not negotiate his salary based on attendance numbers. A priest is ordained into apostolic ministry and assigned by a bishop. He serves wherever he is sent. That could be a wealthy parish in a major city, or it could be a struggling parish in a rural town. His personal income usually remains the same regardless. Most diocesan priests receive a modest stipend, often ranging between roughly $30,000 and $50,000 depending on the diocese. They live in a parish rectory. Their basic living needs are covered, but they are not accumulating wealth through ministry.
Instead, I receive a stipend to take care of myself. It's really not much. I'm the cheapest staff member at my parish, but I also don't have many expenses. I won't ever be rich, but I also have enough to not be concerned about money. I can focus my energy on my people and my ministry. We call this a life of simplicity, and honestly, I love it. When you've seen the depth of spiritual beauty that I've seen as a priest, the things of the world really don't shine as much. I'm storing up riches in heaven, and the exchange rate there is pretty good.
The Catholic priesthood was never designed to create financial success. It was designed to reflect sacrifice. Quick pause. If you want to go deeper into topics like this and actually understand the Catholic faith beyond surface-level arguments, make sure you're signed up for our free newsletter. We drop it the same day as every video. Link is in the description. Now let's get back into it. The reason for that structure becomes clearer when we look at the New Testament model of ministry. Consider how the early church operated. In Acts 2:44-45, we read that the first Christians had all things in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. The early Christian community did not revolve around religious celebrities. It revolved around shared sacrifice. Even the apostles themselves lived lives of hardship. Paul describes his ministry in 2 Corinthians 11:27, saying, "I have laboured and toiled, and have often gone without sleep. I have known hunger and thirst, and have often gone without food." That does not sound like a man building a comfortable religious career. That sounds like someone enduring suffering for the gospel. Paul also warns Christian leaders about financial motivation in ministry. In 1 Thessalonians 2:5, he writes, "We never use flattery, nor did we put on a mask to cover up greed. God is our witness." Paul is emphasizing that his ministry was not driven by financial ambition. In Acts 20:33-35, he reminds the elders in Ephesus, "I have not coveted anyone's silver or gold or clothing. You yourselves know that these hands of mine have supplied my own needs." Paul even worked as a tent maker at times so that he would not burden the churches financially. Again, the point is not that ministers should never receive support. The Bible clearly allows for that. But the pattern of the apostles emphasizes humility, service, and sacrifice, rather than wealth.
How long have you been a priest for?
10 years.
What's your highest level of education?
I have 2 master's degrees.
How many days a week do you work?
Probably work nearly every day.
What's an interesting fact about this church?
This was actually the church where the wedding scene in Love Actually was filmed, the Richard Curtis film.
I actually do know roughly what a Church of England priest stipend is because it's pretty consistent across the board. Is it around £32,000 per year?
That is correct.
And you're happy with that?
Yep, that works very well, particularly because it comes with housing.
Protestants often respond at this point by quoting 1 Corinthians 9:14, where Paul says, "The Lord commanded that those who proclaim the gospel should get their living by the gospel." That is absolutely true. Ministers deserve support. But notice the distinction. Support is not the same as building personal wealth. Even when Paul defends the right of ministers to receive support, he immediately adds that he personally chose not to exercise that right in order to remove any suspicion about his motives. In 1 Corinthians 9:18, he asks, "What then is my reward? That in preaching the gospel I may offer it free of charge." Paul was deeply concerned about avoiding even the appearance that ministry was being used for profit. At this point, many Protestants raise an objection. They point to prominent Catholic figures like Robert Barron and ask whether Catholic leaders also build media platforms and ministries. After all, Bishop Barron founded Word on Fire Catholic Ministries, which produces books, videos, and educational materials that reach millions of people. Isn't that the same thing as Protestant pastors building religious brands? The answer reveals the fundamental difference between the two systems. Bishop Barron does not own the Catholic Church. He does not control Catholic doctrine. He is still accountable to church authority and the broader structure of the episcopate. His media apostolate exists to support the church's evangelization, not to replace it. His authority as a bishop comes from apostolic succession and ordination, not from his popularity or media influence. If Bishop Barron disappeared tomorrow, the Catholic Church would continue exactly as it has for 2,000 years. The Church is not built on his personality. In contrast, many Protestant ministries revolve around a central figure. The pastor's preaching style, leadership, and personality often define the entire church. If that personality leaves or fails, the ministry can collapse. That difference is not a criticism of individuals. It is a structural reality. The Catholic Church is an institution that transcends any individual priest or bishop. Protestant churches are often built around a leader. That difference dramatically changes how authority and finances function. Another important biblical principle appears in 1 Peter 5:2-3, where Peter instructs church leaders, "Be shepherds of God's flock, not pursuing dishonest gain, but eager to serve, not lording it over those entrusted to you." Peter is describing the ideal character of Christian leadership: service, humility, and freedom from financial greed. The Catholic priesthood attempts to preserve that principle by separating personal wealth from ministry. Priests receive modest support, but they do not personally profit from the success of the parish. The modern world often struggles to understand this model because it values personal success, influence, and wealth. But the gospel turns those values upside down. Jesus himself lived without wealth. In Luke 9:58, he says, "Foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head." The founder of Christianity did not build a comfortable life. He lived a life of radical sacrifice. When Catholic priests imitate that lifestyle, they are not doing something unusual. They are following the example of Christ. None of this means the Catholic Church is perfect. Human beings are flawed, and every institution has failures. But the structure of the priesthood was designed to protect the gospel from becoming a business. By separating ministry from personal wealth, the Church attempts to keep the focus where it belongs, on Christ, not on the preacher. Ultimately, the real question is not whether ministers deserve financial support. They clearly do. The real question is, which system better protects the integrity of the gospel? Is it the system where a preacher's income grows with his audience, or the system where a priest serves regardless of popularity? The apostles did not build personal brands. They built the church, and the Catholic priesthood continues that structure today. That truth may make some people uncomfortable, but sometimes the most important questions are the ones people least want to ask.